Panda, 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 panda. I got broads in Atlanta, just to throw me in the family. Credit cards in the scammers, hitting the licks in the van. Legacies, family, wait and see, look like a panda. Going out like
Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the EV Revolution Show. My name is Kenneth Bokor, your host for this edition, episode 35 of the EV Revolution Show. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy schedules to sit with me for a few minutes and watch my show and listen to what I have to say about what's going on in the EV landscape from the last show over the last few days and this week. So let me get right into the top story today. Well, it's Tesla. Tesla came out last night with the Model Y reveal. I actually did stay up to watch it, and I have to admit I wasn't overly impressed with the reveal. With the event itself, didn't have really a high energy to it, other than some people that were always yelling in the crowds and interrupting Elon as he was speaking. But I know that it's an exciting time for many people. I like that he went through the history of Tesla and to reinforce how they got there in such a short time. And that's important for a lot of people to understand that don't follow Tesla. So I think that was good. But obviously the focus was on the Model Y, which was announced. So it is up to a 7-seater. They call it an SUV now, more like a crossover, which is what I thought it was. But, obviously there are small and compact SUVs as well as larger SUVs. So it's definitely going after the right market space. I've been saying that for a while, that is a hot market space. Well, what are some of the stats on this? Well, it's going to start price-wise at about $47,000 US. And like in following the Model 3 footsteps, they will come out with the higher cost trim packages and options first. And they will do that for quite some time. So they're going to come out with the long range version, the dual motor all-wheel drive and performance variants ahead of time, like they did with the Model 3, and then they'll come out with the standard range version after that. Now that standard range version is priced at $39,000 USD to start, and that's a great entry point for that segment of the vehicle landscape and marketplace. So I think that's priced very competitively. So the Model Y can carry up to 7 adults. I didn't physically go down there and sit in it. I'm sure we'll see it. There's probably already videos coming out as I speak on this from yesterday's. I don't anticipate the sixth or the third row to be very roomy as far as larger people like myself or others like that, but for kids or certainly places to put things, I think it'll do quite adequately. It'll have impressive speeds and feeds, of course, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, top speed 150 miles an hour. Standard battery, so the one that they'll come out with later on will be up to 230 miles of range, with the long range up to 300 miles. So very similar to the Model 3 characteristics in their trim models. In fact, it's basically taking a Model 3 chassis and just changing it a little bit, elongating it slightly, adding I think about 10 inches of overall length if I remember correctly, and increasing the rear roof lines to accommodate that more space. But inside it looks just like a Model 3, and that's a great move for Tesla, because they could take something that they're already producing in mass quantities and continuing to improve that economies of scale and just offer it in a slightly different configuration. It'll make their margins more healthier. It'll make their achievements to be able to hit the price points that they want much more realistic by doing that. So that's a smart move on them. So when I saw it roll out, it was it's a Model 3 basically, just slightly bigger. And that's a good move on them. It's a hatchback, people. Yay, finally you get a hatchback here again. And no exception as far as safety goes, because Elon did talk a lot about their safety and what they want to do. So to recap the lineup of the Model Ys, they're going to have the standard range, which is 230 miles, the long range at 300 miles. They'll offer a dual motor all-wheel drive equivalent of 280 mile range, and a performance version with 280 mile range, just tweaked motors and all that good stuff. So the long range will be starting at $47,000 US, with the dual motor at $51,000 US, and the performance at $60,000 US. So very similar, I think, to Model 3 segment, just a little higher. And of course, the standard range, as I mentioned, at $39,000. Deliveries. Well, you won't see any Model Ys on the road till at least a year from now, most likely a year and a half. They're talking about fall of 2020 for initial deliveries, so I would certainly expect the Q3, maybe the early Q4 timeframe, most likely early Q4 of 2020, if I were to bet on that. And then the standard range following a year later. So the good news is you'll be able to get these in about a year and a half. The bad news is if you're holding out for that $39,000 variant, it's going to be probably 2 years from now. So you're going to be having to wait a lot longer. But good on Tesla. As I say, more choice is a great thing. I'm sure the videos, the internet's being flooded with videos now on the Model Y. So go check them out. And I provided, of course, some pictures during this little chat of mine. But congratulations, Tesla, and all the best. And we'll continue to follow the progress on the Model Y. Now, staying with Tesla, one story that came out, I think I reported it on the last show, I know I tweeted about it, was the store closure, so that Tesla was going to reduce the number of stores. Yes, they did on the last show, and augment that by more service centers and by hiring more people in some of the areas in the company like manufacturing and so forth. Well, there's been a change over the last week or so since that last show that they've decided that they're going to kind of hold off on finishing off their store closure plan that they originally came up with, which was to close, if I understand the numbers correctly, about 30% of their sales locations globally they wanted to close. They've kind of already done and factored in about 10% of these locations. So that's, if not, it's happened. And I tweeted out about some reports on some of the things going on with employees, which I won't get into here, but there have been some store closures already, some sales locations, and obviously they're going to relook at a lot of other locations. They're going to relook at those other 20% to see if it's valid to close them, depending on traffic and sales and so forth and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing about the store closures. The other thing, though, is they've announced that they're going to relook at that, but they're going to increase prices. So there's a 3% global price rise. That's my understanding. It doesn't take effect until March 18th, which is just a few days from now. But there will be a small price increase globally. However, it won't impact the $35,000 or the base Model 3 model. It's mainly focused more on the S and the X and the higher priced vehicles. So I'm assuming that the higher priced Model 3 variants will have that 3% price increase as well. So, if anybody has an experience as far as a price range, a price increase on these, send me a note or drop me an email or drop me a note in the comments and let me know what you think about that. And if you've experienced in your area some store closures, I'd like to know where they are, because that's one thing I have not heard is exactly what locations have been closed. I've only got a number, so it'll be interesting to find that out. So anyway, Tesla's a business. They got to do things to make their bottom line more efficient and to get what they need to now so that they can plan for the future. So best of luck to them. Switch gears to Volkswagen. I can't go almost a show or two without talking about Volkswagen, folks. Few articles that came out. One of them is that Volkswagen is actually opening their order books a little early, and this is a European article that I'm referencing, that they're going to open order books on the first full electric variant that they're coming out on their new ID platform, which I believe is the ID Neo, if I've got that right. Sorry, the hatchback. It's going to be you can put in a pre-order for that starting May 8th of this year, so only in about another month or so. And now these are all going to be produced in Germany. These are hatchbacks based on that MEB platform that are Golf-like in size. They are going to, so you can put a deposit down. I don't have a number of how much that deposit is, probably a couple of grand US, I would imagine, or $1,000. The full production version is going to be unveiled at the Frankfurt Motor Show, which I believe is in May, is around that time. And they are going to be making those orders available for right-hand drive customers in the UK as well as left-hand drive clients for other parts of the world. And that's going to be at the same time you'll be able to put a deposit. Now, to just refresh your pricing, the ID hatchback is going to start at less than 30,000 euros, so about 26,000 pounds. I don't know what that is in Canadian or US. You could figure that out. And the largest battery version will go up. They'll have different trim levels for batteries, I think 3 different levels in the lineup. That'll give you a range from 550 kilometers or up to 550 kilometers or 342 miles, and these are WLTP, so most likely so you can trim them down a bit for